all of us had this crazy thought that only we could have, but it turned out we were all having that thought. And there was a comedian in New York named Uncle Dirty, and he had a saying. He said, laughter is the sound of people realizing that they're not alone. I mean, how beautiful is that, right?
Yeah.
And
that was Uncle Dirty?
Yeah, his name was Uncle Dirty. And so that is really what we do a lot of the time as comedians, is just find the thing about ourselves that we think is going to make us look crazy, say it out loud, and it turns out everyone feels that way.
Hello! Hi, this is Simcha Levenberg. Welcome to the Personal Pizza Podcast. On today's show, we have my good, longtime friend, Gerry Katzman. He is a stand-up comedian and a teacher of stand-up comedians and a new dad, new-ish, 4 years. That counts, right? That's still new. And we are talking about this fabulous grandma pizza that we made together as one, and also things we've learned in life and in therapy and in fatherhood. If you are enjoying this podcast, which I hope you are, please share and subscribe and enjoy the show. Okay, so here we are. Welcome back. This is the Simcha Levenberg experience. I am Simcha Levenberg. This is the Personal Pizza Podcast. I'm here with Gerry Katzman. Gerry is one of my oldest friends from Los Angeles. I believe I met you in 2008 or 2009. Mm-hmm. And Gerry is a magician, a stand-up comedian, and he enters my life and therefore yours because he is one of the greatest teachers of stand-up comedy in the greater Los Angeles area.
Thanks.
I don't want to speak for Orange County.
No, we would never. There are some real legends down there. Though that's really kind of, I remember when you were in class and it was so much fun and your set was so amazing, and then you went and opened for Matisyahu on
I did
tour.
get to do that a couple times,
Yeah.
for a nice little 3-month stint or so. I got to do 5 or 6 shows with him. And I brought you here today to talk about a couple things. First of all, I want to talk to you about comedy in general.
Okay.
But really, having watched you work with people and watched you help people create material out of their life, kind of mining your life.
Yeah.
And then, so I want to get to that.
Yeah.
But also what I particularly like about you is your process of working. And I know part of it comes from I don't know if it's therapy you've done or some I know you did some large group awareness training.
Yeah.
You speak very highly of it.
Yeah.
And I have another friend named Simon who also had many, many positive experiences with it. And I think we even on this podcast, I talk about some of the dangers of LGATs. So it's very nice to have people who came in from a healthy place and left in a healthy place and picked up a number of amazing skills that they then were able to generalize into their life. And then, and then I just wanted to be silly with you.
Great.
Because you're one of my favorite silly people.
Thank you so much. Speaking of silly, what are you doing to this?
I should.
Because it looks, you can't see, but it's like he's playing jazz on the dough.
It's just I'm just doing a little improv set inspired by B.B. King.
Yeah.
So this is a grandma pizza,
Okay.
which is the kind of pizza that you would make in a traditional oven at around 500 degrees. It doesn't really get kneaded. It just kind of gets stretched out.
So you just made the dough, you never kneaded it, and you're just stretching. And this tap, tap, tap is your way of stretching it.
Yeah, I just want to stretch it.
But are you being delicate for a reason? I mean, because you're definitely, you're not stretching it, you're sort of coaxing it.
Yeah, I guess it's, I don't want to, the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to rip it, and you want to just be elongating the gluten. It's funny because I made a pizza earlier that was gluten-free, and there's no gluten in that. That's why they call it gluten-free.
Right, I get
A lot
it.
of people don't realize that.
No.
They think it's just, they've attached the word
So that's
free
why
there.
they call it.
That's why they call it gluten-free. That's not just advertising. And since there's nothing, gluten binds. So without the gluten, it's just disintegrating. So now I'm actively stretching the gluten and just kind of watching it move. And I'm just tripping out.
Do you remember Daniel Leary?
I do remember Daniel
He had a
Leary.
joke about, this is many, many years ago when gluten-free things just started coming out. And he said, I had a gluten-free chocolate chip cookie. I don't know what gluten is, but apparently it's delicious.
A good joke.
Yeah, he was
very
best,
funny.
The best.
Yeah.
Went on to create the game Heads Up. I don't know if you know that game, but it's sort of like $10,000 pyramid with your cell phone, so I put
Yes.
the phone up and it has the clue, and then you say to me,
Yes.
he's an entertainer, and I go, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Howard
and
Mandel.
yeah, and then boom, right? Well, that's to be argued, but then boom like that, and he really did well off of that game. While he was a writer for Ellen, he
I
created
remember that
game.
He had a very, very good joke that I still think about the water at the Grove, the water fountain at the Grove.
Yes,
Really-
that there was a fountain choreographer.
Yes.
and spritz. Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
walked through it all. So
Yeah.
I appreciate him. Okay, so I'm pretty much done stretching. I'm going to wash my hands again.
Now I noticed you didn't make it all the way into that
Okay,
corner.
I was
Do you
gonna-
have to?
No.
I want you to rip it.
You don't. So normally you make this in a baking pan, not in a cast iron skillet.
Okay.
I like to use this because then I can use half as much oil.
Okay.
The problem though is that I can't really lift and pull, which is a technique to get it all the way to the edge. You have to go. It's kind of like telling a joke. Like first you go way over the line, and then it automatically figure out. Okay, well now I know where the line is.
You're the George Carlin of pizza. In this moment.
Basically,
Yeah.
these are the 7 ways you can't touch pizza on television.
Oh my gosh.
So how did you? Now there are books about writing stand-up. Actually, one was published recently. How did you realize though I can teach people to write stand-up comedy?
It all happened quite by accident. I was in an acting class at a acting school in Beverly Hills, and one of the assignments that they would give the students was to do stand-up. And the other students knew that I did stand-up. And so they would ask me, a couple of them said to me, like, first one guy said, hey, I have to do, Al is asking me to do stand-up and I don't know how to do it. Could you help me? So I helped this guy, Dan, write a set.
Yeah.
And the set went over really, really well. And so then the next guy, a guy named Ray, asked me, hey, I have to do stand-up. Can you help me write a set? I sat down with him, just helped him write a set. The set went really, really well. And I said,
I don't want to spoil it, but that was Ray Romano.
Yeah. No. And so I at that moment I read, well, that was really fun for me. You know what I mean? I really enjoyed helping my friends get their sort of amplify their message, and it was super gratifying to watch them sort of spread their wings and fly. And it really felt like a great way to help out a classmate and a friend. Then I booked some acting work. I booked parts on Reno 911 and a part on Reno 911 and Henry Jaglom movies and plays and things like that. Those are all improvised. So an acting school hired me to teach improv.
Okay.
And I was young. I was pretty young, and I was, I said to them, listen, do you mind if in addition to teaching improv, I also taught stand-up? Because I think that that's a really, what I wanted to do is just give these students stand-up was so important to me. I wouldn't have had my career in acting if I hadn't done stand-up. So these were all actors, and I was like, well, if I really want to help them, I should teach them this too. So I said to the school, can I do that? And she said, it's your class, you can do whatever you want. These were young students. The first couple classes were international students. So they were sort of there as a whole school program. So they really looked up to you as a teacher and would do pretty much whatever you said. So I decided I would teach them improv from say 7 to 10 p.m. And then we'd take a little break. And then I taught them stand-up from 11 p.m. till 2 a.m. And they loved it.
I mean, let's be clear. When I first took your class, those were the hours. We started at 7:30.
Yes, to 10:30. 7 to 10:30.
It always went over.
Yeah, but I think we always finished by around 10:30.
That was the last time. That's the latest I've ever been out since then.
Yeah.
Those classes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've gotten much better at time management. Yeah.
I'm gonna bring this. We're gonna do we par bake it. We bring it back in. We finish the baking, and then we sit down and eat.
Okay.
So we're gonna come together to do this. So in your first class with half improv, half stand up.
Yep.
And then at a certain point, you were
I
just
did
like,
that for a year or two, and then the school was going to close for the summer, and my students were calling me saying like, well, what's the next class? And I said, I don't know, the school's closed. So I said to the school, what do you want me to do? And she said, you should open up your own school.
Yeah.
And so then we just became stand-up. We just did stand-up. Yeah.
And this has been going on now for
Since like 2003.
25 years coming up on.
Yeah.
Yes.
20, depending how you count it. Like I think I went out on my own in 2005.
On my own.
Yeah. So,
Okay. So how do you? I took your class. I believe I took it 3 times.
Yeah.
And it was always a very, not exclusively actors. certainly not comedians.
Right.
How do you actually say, okay, you can come in, you need a little bit more time, in the incubator?
I mean, I don't often, I've developed over the years a sort of a process, a pre-interview, or an interview process where I interview people who are interested in coming into the class. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to turn that, how many times will you turn that for it to?
Traditionally it's 7.
Is it really?
No.
That sounded very Jewish. And on the 7th day of the 7th term?
In honor of the 7 days of the week and the 7 times the bride encircles the groom.
Yeah.
Or the groom encircles the bride.
I'm just curious, because one day would like to get a pizza oven, and I want to know how you're doing it. So you're just watching?
Yeah, I'm just looking for a par baked look. So this pizza, normally you put it in the oven for 5 minutes at 500 degrees, and then you take it out, and then you put it you add some more cheese, and you put it back in for 10 minutes until it looks totally brown.
You've got great gear, but can I just say this, the method you're using to grab the hot pan.
To grab and turn the pan?
With this.
This feels too casual for you?
This feels like I would think you would have a specific tool for doing this.
So I should just have one of those gloves.
Yeah.
I'm still figuring this out. Because as stated, I used to make it in the oven, but I just like cooking it in the uni.
Yeah.
Because it does it in half the time, and it gives it more of a burnt and crispiness.
Yeah.
I'm kind of trying to mimic... it's almost, it has elements of focaccia.
Yeah.
But it's but with the good pizza-y vibes. Okay, so
right. So yeah, I mean, I just try and why? Let me just think this through. The most important thing about my class, the reason why you liked it so much, I think one of the big reasons is and I think this sort of differentiates us from other classes. We put a lot of emphasis on the vibe. And the vibe has to be kind, it has to be safe, and it has to be caring. We have to get a certain amount of teamwork, because what I'm trying to do is assemble a group of smart, funny, nice, sane people and turn them into a writer's room for each other.
Correct.
And in order to do that, there has to be a high degree of trust.
Yeah.
And that comes from all of the best practices that I've learned from therapy, from acting classes, from writing classes. Anytime I saw a teacher who I thought was abusive, I was like, well, I'll never do that.
Right.
And anytime I saw a teacher who, encouraged people to really give each other their best and create an atmosphere where we were supporting each other instead of critiquing each other, that's the tricky thing about what we do when we're writing comedy. It's, I've got to be able to be honest with you and give you useful feedback, but the feedback can never hurt you. Right. Because if it does, artistically, you're just going to shut down. Like forever. So that's what, I've spent the last 20 years, I wouldn't say perfecting, because I still have much more to learn, and I've made lots of mistakes, but I have always, with my utmost, tried to encourage a really safe, non-judgmental, free and fun and playful space.
But how do you build, it's a 16-week
No, it's
thing?
a 10-week program.
10-week. So how do you create culture in that short of a time? Because you do.
Right.
Because you're going to these, you have a whole, I don't want to get into your proprietary technology here, but you have a system that requires everyone buy in pretty early on. How do you create that culture from the jump?
Well, we have some it's a very. I'm amazed and astounded. Basically, like this. 20 years ago, when I started this thing, things would happen in class that would be bad things. Someone would be a jerk to someone. Someone would show up drunk. Someone would do this, someone would do that. So every time one of those things would happen.
It was me.
Yeah.
I showed up, I was mean, and I showed up late and drunk.
It's kind of a classic we call it the Levenberg clause for that reason. But yeah, so every time that happened, I'd add a new rule to the class agreement. No drinking before, during, no drinking before, during rehearsal, or before, during class, or before, during any class-sponsored performance. That rule's in there because of something that happened, right? We, have a feedback model about how we're going to give each other feedback, and how we're going to start by emphasizing what's working about someone's work.
Okay, let's bring this back in now.
Wow, look at that.
And this is going to be, we're going to be inside for about 2 minutes right now.
If we're asking for podcast purposes, I would say the trick usually for me is keep my thinking big picture. Right? So someone's done something and I'm not completely happy with the job or the part of the job that they've done, but I can't discount the fact that the job overall is happening. Progress is being made. So the first thing I would always try to do, if possible, is acknowledge what has gone well, right? Hey, I'm really excited about the way we're doing this and how this is going. I do have some concerns about X, Y, or Z. Then I would probably tell them, what I'd like to see different or in addition. And then perhaps, I don't always do this, but then perhaps sort of reaffirm. I think if you can get someone to understand before I ever ask someone to do something for me, I typically will explain to them why doing that is important to me.
Okay.
Rather than just asking for a request, right? Like
yes.
Can we change the reservation? My in-laws' flight is delayed. Is very different than, I need to change my reservation.
Correct. So now I'm putting a little bit more
and dots.
A little bit more sauce.
Just dots.
Just for looks. This is all just for.
And that kind of mirrors a little bit of a Detroit style thing, right?
I'm just going off this one recipe.
Okay.
There he kind of just calls it a grandma pizza, but I think Detroit is an even cakier pizza eating experience.
Right. No, I'm just talking about the fact that the sauce is going on top of the cheese.
Yes, correct. In that way, this is true. Also Chicago. Yeah. So
this smells delicious.
Yeah, it's incredible, right? I'm being drawn into it. I want to dive into it right now. We would burn ourselves. This would be a nice little second degree burn, but it'd be worth it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's bring that back outside. So Georgetown University, incredible comedy vibes.
That's what I came for.
You came for the hard pivot. One of the things, I knew you a long time ago before your father had passed away.
Yeah.
And I always got the sense that you and your dad had a great relationship.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, what's interesting is my mom...
Actually, we hated each other.
My mom married him when she was 17. Actually.
Okay, really?
My parents are much older than me. My dad was born in 1930.
Wow.
So they're much older. They had my sisters and they had me considerably after. I loved my dad and he really was an incredible man. But I always kind of, maybe because of how much older he was than me.
You're saying you outkicked your coverage with that obituary is what I'm hearing?
What do you mean I outkicked my coverage?
Like you punched above your weight class?
I gave a eulogy in that thing, and I feel like a jerk for saying, but like I loved my father obviously, but whatever I wrote led people. It resonated for people, and it led, and I think created I think other people romanticized this, I would have loved to have gone camping and played sports and all that stuff. But he was more of a spend time with my mom kind of guy, or spend time with all of us. But I didn't get that sort of one-on-one time that, at least for our generation, was sold to us on television as this is what a father-son relationship is like.
Yeah.
So I now have a 4-year-old son, and I am making up for all of that. You know what I mean? He and I have handshakes and lots of play
Is it
time.
weird when you give him sides for it?
What sides?
Well, I'm just saying, you just work from this script. It's just something.
I go listen, we're playing the part of guys who have a very rapport with each other. So
I'm going to come in pretty hot, and you're going to regulate me, okay?
Yeah. No, fatherhood has been actually, I think, really an interesting. I'm sure you can understand this too. I don't know. What was your relationship with your dad? Close-ish or no?
I would say no. He died when I was 4.
Oh, okay.
So.
But did you find that fatherhood helped to heal some of that?
Well, I would say fatherhood more revealed that I really had no idea what was going on with parenting in general, and I didn't even know what the relationship was. I'm learning now from watching my children move into adulthood and then start to consider marriage, and I'm watching and learning vicariously through their process more than I felt like I learned on my own, because I was so just grasping at straws.
You mean you're learning more about being a parent now
from watching
they're grown?
Yes.
What are you learning from watching your grown children? How is that helping you as a parent?
I think because I and my wife parented from such a place of real feeling pressure and anxiety to be the right kind of parent. Not knowing that there is no right parent, right? You just good enough is what, it's a much broader thing, and that process is way more important than how your children are doing results-wise. And now that's obvious to me, but as a very young parent, I think I was really wanted my children to be a certain way, and I wanted to parent the right way, but I didn't actually know what the right way was. So my children now as adults are much more relaxed than I ever was, as young adults, I should say. And I'm kind of seeing how they are in relationship with their friends and with their people they've dated or gotten married to, and I'm learning from them things that, again, also because I was clueless. I mean, I still am clueless.
Right.
Anything that you're supposed to be more like. I'm like this next period of my life, like turning 50 in a couple years, I have no idea what it's going to be like. And I feel like I anything I know, again, I'm thinking like growing pains, family ties, a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I feel like I'm just going to age into Larry David if I'm lucky. Yeah. That's a best case.
You know Milana, she's one of the students, she's an alumni of the class, Milana Vaintrub, really talented actor, and she had a premise that she wrote for class, which is that parenting is the only job pretty much that you read, you're learning what you need to know as it comes up. Do you know what I mean? Like yes. You're reading, you go, oh, there's a problem. I better read up on this tonight so I can face it tomorrow. Yeah. She had sort of an act out on that. Like no other job is like that. A pilot isn't like, we'll be taking off right after I figure what this red button does, right? And it's like kind of like that, parenting is that kind of.
You have the test first, and then you learn the material later. Also.
Yeah.
I feel. So the first two kids. So here's actually this. I don't know if this is a premise or this is something that I realized, and I've actually spoke to a lot of different parents about this. We kind of have like two different sets of stages in parenting. The kids you have when you're young, and then the kids you have when you're older. So I have two different groups because I have 5 sons. So the sons I had when I was very young, I had a ton of energy. Yeah. Right. But I was fucking clueless. Right. Yeah. No wisdom. Right. Yeah. And then towards the end of fatherhood, I have a lot of wisdom. Yeah. No fucking energy. Right. I'm wasted. So I have two sons that I had right in the middle. Yeah. And I feel like they got the best version of me.
That's cool.
So where I had just the right amount of energy and wisdom. Yeah. And that's kind of a good place to parent from. Yeah. Now there's no joke there, but
no. Just the sad truth that I'm in the wisdom, no energy spectrum.
Yeah. My youngest son can speak to wisdom, and my oldest sons can talk about what it was like to have a father who didn't need to sleep.
Oh man.
Okay, this is almost done.
But I just want to say I love my dad, and I feel really guilty about that. But I made a pact that I would really.
We know you loved him. We read the article.
I really did, and do.
How do you help people find the humor in their lives? Yeah. How do you do that process?
You just, what we do is we spend a lot of time so the first stage of this class, my class, is bonding people and getting them to understand that they're among friends and in a safe place. And that's a fair bit of heavy lifting, but we get there.
This is before the ritual tattoos?
Yeah.
And the branding?
Well, we've stopped the branding. It's a laser tattoo now.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
So then we help people find their topics, which is a whole other craft, right? Because people will have topics that they should talk about in stand-up that are completely invisible to them. I've had people go, oh, at the end of a class, the end of a 10-week class, the night before a showcase, oh, that reminds me of, how growing up in a Mormon sex cult.
Whoa!
And I'll be like, what? And they'll be like, oh, why? Is that interesting? Does that sound like it could be interesting to talk about? I'll be like, uh-huh. And so what I developed
We just spent 6 weeks working on your life as an Uber driver.
Yeah, totally. your philately, your stamp collection thing. So actually, because of that, I developed a process to get people to understand what their topics are from
proprietary technology.
Exactly, we're not going to talk about it. But so after we get people to understand, to feel comfortable with each other, and then to find what their topics are, Then we use a technique called premise act out, where we have them find. This is kind of paradoxical, but in a comedy class, what you want to do is not try to be funny.
Correct.
Right.
You're gonna see and be amazed.
Now that's interesting. So this spatula doubles as a pizza knife.
Yeah, it's like really a dough.
Scraper?
Yeah, it's a dough scraper officially, but I just find that it's a nice. It works really well for this.
Cheers.
Yes. L'chaim, to you.
Excited.
Oh, it's hot. Oh, so good. So good. Right? Mm-hmm. Right? Special. So hot. It could sit for a minute. Mm-hmm. So you have a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
You've been married for a while. Your wife is a therapist.
Yes.
She's very into internal family systems.
That's right.
What have you had any IFS stuff?
I did a couple of sessions with. So, the training that you did, which is Dick Rosenberg's training. No, isn't it the? You didn't do the.
No, Dick's work.
Dick, we knew a Dick Rosenberg. I got confused.
Okay. No, look, I'm a huge Dick Rosenberg guy.
Yeah, he was the head of Bank of America, I think. Dick Schwartz. That training is very difficult to get into.
Yes.
It's a lottery, and
Yes.
it's like you never get picked. I mean,
Correct.
you got picked.
I got lucky.
Do you have any hot pepper?
Ooh! This sauce isn't hot enough for you. Yeah, I got you.
Let me add like.
I got you, man.
All right, great.
I got you. I'm coming. I'm coming in. You're welcome.
So she did another training,
Right?
which is a Canadian version of the training.
Oh.
And-
the 51st state.
Yeah, right, right. The Gulf of Canada, and
We still talk about that? Okay.
yeah, and so she's had a good time with it. And in Canada, like you don't. Some of, well, maybe even here too. Some of these therapists are also coaches. They can choose to see whether they want to see you as a therapist or want to see you as a coach.
Got it.
So one of the trainers that she was really impressed by, she really wanted me to see, what was it like. So I did a couple of sessions with her therapist, and I found it to be so interesting and really remarkably quickly transformative. You get a sort of I got a really big untying of knots. First of all, knots that I didn't know were there, right? So I do talk therapy, right? I go to a talk therapist. But so I think I know where all my knots are. I'm just using it as a metaphor.
It's a good metaphor.
But in the IFS, I discovered some knots that I was completely unaware of, and they got untied remarkably quickly. And I think it's a really fascinating way of working. It also, as an actor, feels a lot like acting. It feels very much like when you're acting in a scene and you get lost in the scene. It's sort of a blending of your imagination with what's going on in real time. And you don't usually get that in a normal talk therapy session. You're not using your imagination so much in a talk therapy session.
Yes.
It's very verbal. It's very from the head.
Yes.
But when you use your imagination, it's almost like when a musician is like it got their eyes closed and they're sort of jamming. There's this otherworldliness that every IFS session I did had to it, and I think because you're sort of interacting profoundly with your imagination, I think it opens the door to a much quicker transformation.
It is true. Every kind of session has almost like a journey type feel to it.
Yeah.
A journey inside where you are. Yes, you cannot come in there full of cynicism. There needs to be some willingness to play, and discover and be curious. It's very much like let me tell you what happened in 4th grade. There's this bully.
Yeah.
And
it might start there, but then it goes somewhere else, completely different.
Correct.
It's really interesting work, and they call it the third wave. You ever heard that term?
First would be like behavioral. Second would be like humanistic or something like that. And now we're into this third, or the first would be continental. The second would be humanistic, and then now we're in this third. It does feel having done talk therapy for many, many years, and then discovering IFS, being coaxed into IFS. Actually, I had as a guest on the show Nancy Morgan, who was the psychologist who turned me on to internal family systems.
Oh, really?
By describing it to me in 2021, and I'd heard it on podcasts, but until you meet somebody who is like, this is how I do therapy, and you hear somebody speak on behalf of different parts of themselves in a way that feels grounded, and then you watch them you watch them behave and move through life slightly differently with less with more fluid and adaptability. So I was like, what's going on with this lady? And so that's how I kind of discovered IFS. That was my window in, and it's been transformative for me. And just not getting trapped in my head and in my narratives and in my very, very boring stories. I'm always thinking like I'm 24 hours a day. I'm telling like a podcast for an audience of one, just to myself, and I'm just like, man, with advertisements and like and also comments. The whole thing I got it going on. It's a full production team. And it's rough.
Our sponsor on the pod today is Insecurity. It's been with us since we were a kid.
For a long time. Since 1981, we've been feeling this.
Yeah.
And so it's a different way in to kind of, that is one part of me that is telling the story of me at all times, and it is only one of many, many parts. And let's see what's going on in there, and let's unblend from that, right? Like the knot metaphor that you used that really worked for me. So when I met you in 2008, 2009, you already...
Can I cut this?
Yeah, I take
want to
from the
have
corner.
A crispy...
You want the corner.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, 4 corners.
Okay.
Yes, anytime you're eating pizza like this, much like brownies, you want the corner.
Yeah.
You want always an edge. They actually make pans for this that some people buy.
Oh yeah, like I've seen a brownie thing that's all edge.
Yes, and I know people who make their pan pizza with the same one.
Okay.
I've considered it.
It'd
haven't
be
gone
interesting.
their own way.
Right.
I'll let you know.
Right.
I'll bring you back on when I do it. When I met you, I could tell that you were a person who had knew how to work with people and be flexible and honest with people and very authentic and real in your communication. And then I found out that you had done some EST workshops.
Well,
maybe it was Landmark
at
the time. Yeah. And you had a positive experience.
Yeah.
Which I want to highlight because there are 2 types of people.
Yeah.
People who are trying to hard sell you on going to Landmark, and people who are telling you their terrible story that happened to them at a large group awareness training. But there's no one who went there, had a nice experience, and then moved the fuck on with their life. We don't get to hear from them. We're hearing either end.
I'm glad to be representing that contingent.
Yes, probably the silent majority.
I would hope so. I would hope so. I mean, it's kind of sad when you have something that really worked well for you, and you can tell. I mean, the technology, if you want to call it that, of Landmark, like what we're talking about, the technology of internal family systems, the technology of cognitive behavioral therapy, the technology of Landmark can be really miraculous. I mean, it really changed me from a person who was sort of always afraid to show you who I was and like always trying to like, oh, well, I wasn't that late. You know what I mean? To a person who was like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm running late. Do you know what I'm saying? Like just a straight ahead guy. I'm not saying I'm perfectly in that way, but I'm a lot more able to own stuff since doing that. And it created a relationship of integrity for me. You know, I didn't have a relationship. Part of the problem with that is most people don't know the way. The one thing Landmark taught me was how to clean up when my integrity was out. They have a saying, the great thing about integrity is it's always out somewhere. See, I was going through life thinking, oh, I broke my word, I'm a bad person. What their sort of thing is like, well, everyone is ongoingly, because you're human, breaking your word. Now what matters is, how do I clean that up and move on, right? These are really essential life skills that we are not taught. Most of us are not taught by our schools, or we're not really taught that by our parents. You know, this is really, really important stuff for just living a positive life. The problem is with it is you get a lot of this good stuff in there, and then wrapped in this sort of package, including like, oh, you should really tell your friends about this seminar.
A hard sell.
It's like this thing, and so what ends up happening is this great thing that's being marketed by amateurs poorly with this sort of, it just doesn't work. So, I had a great experience there, but at the end of the day, most people will end up getting turned off by it because of that salesy marketing thing. I actually wrote a letter to the guy who ran it, the president. His name, I think his name isn't Dick Rosenberg, but it's very, very, very similar to it. And I said to him, look, man, I said, I loved what I got out of this course, and I would love to, invite people to do it. But, when I buy a Pepsi and I enjoy a Pepsi, Pepsi doesn't tell me, hey, did you enjoy Pepsi? Tell 100 of your friends about Pepsi. They take my money that they got from my buying their Pepsi and they run some commercials. You should do that because people are creeped out by this. And it's not because so much about what you're teaching, it's because of this marketing aspect of it that is making it seem so sleazy and skeevy. And I feel it terribly. If they ever came out with a training that didn't have that, but they all seem to have that. They all seem to.
I mean, there's clearly an incentive. They're incentivized to hold the technology close, hold the information close to the vest, and try to bring you in, and then, to make.
But I mean, I think they could make money if they just, Tony Robbins doesn't do this whole thing. Your therapist doesn't do this. Hey, if you enjoy therapy, you might want to ask your friends. They're doing this. I think there's definitely a market for an organization that would say, hey, we're going to even charge you a little more. But you know what we're not going to do is alienate everyone in your life because they think you're a weirdo for trying to get them to take this class.
Yes. And the other issue is that there's a vulnerable portion of our population that probably needs to not take a landmark class because either they have a propensity towards psychotic episodes or maybe have a manic episode, and the pressure of it, or a person had a lot of traumatic experiences at a young age, the pressure of that kind of dopamine withholding, heavy duty focus, high stress can be a little much for some people. So we need a better way to just help people get in there who want to be there, and then not push everyone else away. But there is that. I love that idea of integrity and keeping your side of the street clean.
Yeah.
You have to have an experience of doing that, and that's why those trainings are so good. Because there's a lot of role playing and in the moment, very like a Fritz Perls kind of a gestalt, like right here and now. Let's do this thing, and then there's no place for you to run to, and you can't get on your phone to avoid it. You can't excuse yourself. You're just in the room doing it.
And like group therapy, you get to watch a 50-year-old man. I probably did it when I was in my 20s or something like that. You watch a 50-year-old man talking about his problems, and you go, "Oh, I have the exact same problem."
Right.
And then you watch a 20-year-old woman talking about this, and you go, and there's this amazing recognition that we're all basically running from the same things. And that's a beautiful thing that they're able to do, is sort of go, we are humans and all humans do this. And when you get to watch the multiplicity of like, oh my God, like we all are afraid of being laughed at and that's sort of what's running the show. How do I break that? That's really useful stuff. Unfortunately, they do some stuff that's not so useful. So, I had to step away and I can't recommend it to people. I tried recommending it to people, and then some people had great experience and some people had terrible experiences. So it's like, it's too much of a crapshoot, especially when you're in the position of being a therapist or a teacher. I can't recommend things to people if I'm not certain they're going to have a good experience or close to certain,
Right.
With some occasionally, not in a long time, but I might have recommended it with like a million provisos, but my life would have gone completely differently had I not done it.
Right.
So I think in theory it can be an amazing thing.
Yeah.
But then in theory it can be a really destructive thing.
Yeah. What I love about what you just said is that, and it also ties into what you're doing as a teacher, is there is a sense of like this terminal uniqueness that we all have, that like what I'm going through is very much my own thing and no one else would understand it and no one else can relate to it, and I'm just on an island of just only me having this experience, again, just running this podcast because I'm the only one who wants to hear it. And then you go into a room and you hear someone else speak, and they look nothing like you and have had a radically different life experience, but are having the same internal monologue and the same. You're seeing yourself in their story.
Yeah.
You're seeing images. You're seeing your face inside of their face and your story inside of their story.
Yeah.
Which is also what you do with your comedy, where
Yeah.
you get people to get really, really specific, and then something in that. Can you talk about how you help people do that?
Well, I mean, when I was 17, I don't know how I ended up in a stand-up club in New York, but New York's, they didn't really card back that much in the day, and this.
I'm 11. Can I come in? Yeah, come on.
This comedian was talking about how the premise was something like, sometimes you're in a public bathroom and the lock on the door to the stall is broken, and you hear someone walking toward you, and you could just go, there's someone in here, but for some reason you don't do that. Instead, you become the worst actor in the world and you do a really fake sounding cough, right? Now, I had that thought myself, and I thought, that's such a weird thing that I thought that. And then the comedian said that, and suddenly the whole room was laughing at that. And it was mind-blowing for me that all of us had this crazy thought that only we could have, but it turned out we were all having that thought. And there was a comedian in New York named Uncle Dirty, and he had a saying. He said, laughter is the sound of people realizing that they're not alone. I mean, how beautiful is that, right?
Yeah.
And
That was Uncle Dirty?
Yeah, his name was Uncle Dirty. And so, that is really what we do a lot of the time as comedians, is just find the thing about ourselves that we think is going to make us look crazy, say it out loud, and it turns out everyone feels that way.
Right.
Louis C.K., controversial figure, but when at the beginning of his real surge of popularity, did a bit about how his 2-year-old daughter was a real bitch. And up until that point, no one had really said it like that.
Correct.
No one had heard a parent go, this frickin' chick, you know what I mean? And he said it, and people exploded. He said the secret thing out loud that all parents think about their kids sometimes. And that is really the paradox of stand-up, that the crazier it makes you feel, the more normal it makes you look.
Right. The more out on a limb and isolated and like n=1 you feel, the more likely it is that like actually everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
And even if not everybody, there's going to be a lot of people who feel, Konstantin Stanislavski said, that which is most personal is most universal.
Oh, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we're looking to do is to give people the courage to share that about themselves, the things that they feel shame. I mean, I've said this before, but for me, the process is everyone has shame, and that's poisonous for us. We talk about it, we neutralize the poison, we make it funny, and we turn it into medicine that heals ourselves and everyone else. And that's sort of the chemistry of the alchemy of comedy. We are shamanic in that way, and it's a therapeutic process, and I think that's why you resonate so well with it.
With comedy, I mean, yes.
I think that's why the thing about doing stand-up that you enjoyed has a lot in common with the things about therapy that you enjoy.
Oh, that's 100% true. What I do with clients most of the time is I listen to them talk, and then something they say makes me laugh. And then I just want to talk about the thing that I found funny, and then that's it. And then the conversation goes on for that. Every once in a while we talk about like sleep and exercise, and their parents. But the rest of the time we're talking about just these little tiny moments where in the room there's just connection, and that's basically those are my best moments in therapy.
So that's really interesting to me. So you're saying you'll talk to a client, you'll find something, you'll find the premise and what they just said that appeals to you, and you use that as the springboard to get them talking and exploring issues. And
so the spitballing process that you do, I will just laugh, and they'll be like, they'll want to know what's so funny. And then I'll just tell them what I thought was amazing, or because sometimes humans in their like just most tragic moments say the funniest things, right? And then or it could just be that it reminds me of something, or a movie or something like that. And then we're off, and then eventually we circle back to the reason what they came in. But no one comes into therapy for the reason they think they're coming into therapy.
Right.
It's always something different.
Right.
Because on a certain level, look, it's exercise. It's sleep, it's nutrition, it's relationships, it's meaning, right? Spirituality, right? And then sometimes there's some career stuff along the side. But like, it's all shit that ChatGPT can help us with. At this point, our robot overlords can get us through the next stage. Everything else is just, it's all in the relational field. That's what I find, or at least that's a part of therapy that my clients and I are drawn towards, or they just leave, and that's fine. Because I like sitting in my office. Okay, thoughts on the pizza before I let you leave?
I liked it. It's cakey.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's a cakey pizza. The look of it made me think it was going to be really toothsome and crunchy. You know what I mean?
You wanted more tooth.
Is there a way
you
make this, but it's less pufky?
No, the pufky which is a clinical term, both in pizza making and therapy. I didn't know it was in the comedy field. That actually comes from figuring out other ways to even get more starch in there. So I actually riced a potato and put a potato into the dough, and that kind of helps you want the puff, I believe.
I want it to taste how this looks. I want it to crunch.
So what I could be doing, and this, by the way, this is all important feedback, and I'm going to take this, to the back into the brain trust and figure this out. I could be doing more of a par bake. Because that's really,
that would make a drier.
What you're seeing here is this is the par bake part, whereas here it's there's just much more moisture. So maybe that's the answer.
I mean, I could like this more if I was in the mood for a really kind of cakey pizza. You know what I mean?
But whoever says like, I want cake, but I also want pizza, because I would just have pizza and then cake.
Yeah. But I mean, I like it. It's just these edges are what I'm interested in.
Yes.
In a pizza.
Yes.
And I guess that like a Detroit style pizza has that same thing, the edges, but the rest of the pizza has more of that consistency as well. So I like this very much.
You're saying we should do more of a par bake and just try from there. That would be the note.
I think it's going to be a different dough.
Wow.
I think it's going to be a different dough. This dough, no matter how much you par bake
you think
it,
we're always going to just have, it's always going to be too soft.
It's soft right now. It's very soft.
Well, it does use like all-purpose flour. It doesn't use a high-protein flour. So I'm wondering if that's a change to make.
Yep.
Or, okay, good. This has all been really helpful.
But I mean, I think, I would love to, if ever
I
I'm
hope the
back.
Detroit Pizza Mafia is watching this, and then they're going to come and they're gonna straighten me out and bring me
because I mean
I'll have my come to Jesus
this
moment.
Feels like almost a Detroit
it is very
pan.
it is close to it.
It's a beautiful pie. I enjoyed it, and I would like to see what if I'm ever invited back, do you ever make a round pizza?
I do.
I'd like to see a thinner crust pizza out of you,
and I will give you that.
Okay.
This is good. This is actually very of the moment. You just gave some criticism right now.
Yes.
But you did it. That's a callback.
That is good.
What you did is you thought about the big picture here, making pizza, right? What we're really going for long term, and then what can we do to, in the short term, this is where I think there's a growth edge for you. And the growth edge is the actual edge of the pie. So, Gerry Katzman.
I feel reborn.
An excellent stand-up teacher, a great stand-up, a good magician.
Thank you.
A fantastic human being.
Thanks.
I'm assuming you're a good father.
I'm hoping.
I said from the beginning, Gerry Katzman's going to be a great dad.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, a great husband.
Yeah.
And a good guest on the pod. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
Woo! Hi. That was great, wasn't it? Thanks for tuning in to the Personal Pizza Podcast. Special thanks to our producer, Matthew Mojo Jones, and Patrick, I don't have a last name, and to Gerry Katzman for coming on board. I'm Simcha Levenberg. Please share and subscribe and have a fantastic day.